I froze. This guy was tying his backpack, chatting and laughing like he had been with us from the start. But I didn't know him. Okay, I need to get this off my chest, and maybe writing it down will help. This happened a few years ago when I was in northern Sweden with a group of Boy Scouts. There were 6 of us in total, including me, and we were camping on a remote island. No one else was supposed to be there. At night, we started gathering firewood. It was dark, so dark that we could barely see a meter ahead. To avoid getting lost, we kept talking constantly. It didn't matter what we said. We just needed to hear each other's voices to stay oriented. That's when I noticed something strange. 7 voices. At first, I tried to ignore it. Maybe someone spoke twice. Maybe I misheard. But then I realized the others were uneasy too. They had noticed it as well. And the scariest part, we were in pairs. Everyone heard that extra voice. No one addressed it directly, but no one slept that night. The next morning, I started feeling a little better. The sun was up. Everything seemed normal. But then, it hit me like a punch to the gut. When we gathered to pack up, there was one more person. I froze. This guy was tying his backpack, chatting and laughing like he had been with us from the start. But I didn't know him. I looked at the others, waiting for someone to question it, but no one did. To them, he was just another member of the group. Then he looked at me. Not just any look. It was like he knew I had noticed something I wasn't supposed to. Like he was waiting to see what I would do. And me? I did nothing. I just went along with it. Pretended everything was normal because what else could I do? When we got into the van to leave, I waited. I watched each person get in. 1, 2, 3, 6. Only 6. The stranger was gone. He just disappeared. No one mentioned anything. I never brought it up with the others. And honestly, I'd rather keep it that way. I still think about it sometimes and wonder, what if I had said something? What if I had reacted? But maybe it's better not to know. I think I was followed by something that shouldn't be there. So this happened to me a few weeks ago, but I still can't stop thinking about it. I decided to share it here because I need to know if anyone has experienced something similar. I live in California and really enjoy hiking alone. The sun was already starting to set when I noticed something strange. I was climbing a steeper section when I saw a mountain lion standing among the trees, about 20 meters away. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I know that in these cases, the recommendation is to stay calm, not run, and back away slowly. So that's exactly what I did. I kept moving down the trail, keeping my eyes on the animal. After a few minutes, I looked back, nothing. I breathed a sigh of relief and kept walking. But then, a little later, I looked again. And there it was, standing in the middle of the trail, staring right at me. My blood ran cold. I knew I shouldn't run, but every instinct in my body was screaming at me to get out of there. I held my breath, tried to make myself look bigger, and kept backing away slowly. The lion disappeared into the trees. I picked up my pace. At every turn in the trail, I looked over my shoulder, and every time, it felt like it was still following me. Sometimes I saw it directly. Other times, I just had that eerie feeling of being watched. My brain was screaming at me to flee, but I knew that could make me look like prey. So I stuck to the protocol and kept walking, trying to stay calm. This went on for nearly an hour. Just when I thought I was safe, it would show up again, watching me. The sun was already setting when I finally spotted a small ranger station at the end of the trail. I had never felt so relieved in my life. I ran up to it and knocked on the door. A park ranger opened up, and before he could say anything, I blurted out, "A mountain lion was following me. I saw it multiple times. I think it was hunting me." The ranger frowned and looked around, seeming confused. He picked up a radio and started talking to someone, asking if there had been any recent reports of pumas in the area. Then he looked back at me and said, "Dude, there aren't any mountain lions here. There never have been. This area is monitored, and there haven't been any sightings for years." I let out a nervous laugh. "No, I saw it, several times. It followed me for miles." He stared at me seriously. "Are you sure it was a mountain lion?" That question sent chills down my spine. I was sure, or at least I thought I was. My mind started replaying every moment, those eyes in the trees, that shadow moving, the shape. What the hell did I see on that trail? To this day, I still don't know.
I'll be the first to say that all this stuff could have taken place in my head. The mind is a freaky thing and can play some pretty trippy tricks on you. Sorry for the length. Whenever I was scared as a kid, my dad had always told me that in life, you should not be scared of ghosts. Fear the living, because they can actually hurt you. In my late teenage years, I came into some money after my father committed suicide, and I received an inheritance from him. At time of my dad's passing, he and my mom owned a cabin up in Oregon by Mount Bachelor. The cabin had been put up for sale since my mom could no longer afford the payments, and renting it out was not covering the payments either. The cabin was set to go on the market for sale in less than a month, and was in the process of finalizing all the paperwork with the realtor and lawyer. So for that month's time, the cabin was not going to be rented out any longer and was going to be vacant. I saw this as a chance to get away for a while and clear my head in light of all the things going on. I quit work, packed up my snowboarding gear, grabbed my dog, and headed up in my dad's car that he had willed to me to the cabin. Now, this was our family cabin that my parents rented out throughout the year when we were not using it. I had keys to the cabin and also had the code for the alarms, so I did not feel the need to stop at the rental management company and advise them of my stay. This has nothing to do with the coming story, but felt the need to mention it anyway. My first 2 days at the cabin were normal, and nothing out of the unusual happened. Spent my days playing with my dog in the snow, snowboarding, and the evenings playing PlayStation, or listening to music, drinking, and smoking out on the balcony. Had already stocked up on food, cigarettes, and liquor, so I was pretty much a shut-in, aside from the occasional out to hit the slopes. With my dog as company and DVD's PlayStation as entertainment, I was quite content and started to feel relaxed after all the drama that had preceded my outing. The cabin itself was 2 stories. Bottom story had the living room and a side guest bedroom along with small kitchen. Upstairs had another 2 rooms along with a walkout balcony attached to the master bedroom. Most of my time there was spent either in the living room, kitchen, or master bedroom. I never ventured into the other rooms and always kept the doors leading into them shut. Open doors to dark rooms always freaked me out. Anyhow, the 3rd day came around and I was going through my usual routine of playing with my dog. His name was Midnight, by the way, and he also since passed. Playing games and watching DVDs. That day it was pretty heavy snowfall, so I did not feel like trekking down the hill to the main road in my car and decided to stay in. That's when things started getting a bit weird. In our area there were only 2 other cabins adjacent to ours, maybe a block away from each other. All other cabins aside from these 2 were around a mile away from ours. Surrounding us was mostly forest, and very tall pine trees tall. This is important later on. Both these cabins were empty, and from the past couple of days I knew that no one was currently staying there. Gave enough background and am going to jump to the weirdness. Around midday, while outside with my dog, I noticed what looked like footprints in the snow around the area surrounding our cabin. It was still snowing, so the footprints looked semi-fresh, like someone had been there in the last 20 to 30 minutes before me. I thought that maybe someone was staying in the cabin near me that I may not have noticed. Maybe they were shut-ins like me. Alright, whatever. The prints lead away from my cabin, and they disappeared in the snow towards the denser part of the trees, disregarded the footprints, and went back inside. Nighttime came around and decided to head to bed. My dog Midnight was laying on the bed with me when I noticed his ears perk up to a standstill, listening position. This was followed by him quickly jumping off the bed and running downstairs to the living room. I lay in bed and stayed silent. I was kinda freaked out and could hear him moving around downstairs back and forth. After around 5 minutes, he ran back upstairs to me and started to do his doggy dance for the sign that he had to pee or that he wanted to go outside. Shit, well fine. I can't say no to him, so we both went downstairs to the outside driveway for him to his thing. Only he didn't want to pee. As soon as we were outside, he started to pull on his leash, trying to drag me to where he wanted to go. He kept looking into the dense part of the trees where the prints had been earlier. But he also kept sniffing the side of the house and looking up towards the roof. After he figured out that I was not going to go to where he wanted, he sat himself down and just stared into the darkness. A bit unusual for him, but alright. Maybe there are forest animals out there that he wants to chase down. But fuck this. Did not want to chance anything, so I pulled him back inside and we both headed back upstairs. Around half an hour later, I was lying in bed when I heard what sounded like hooves walking on my roof. It was only a series of around 6 steps, and I rationalized that it could be a pine cone falling from a tree onto the roof, or maybe a kind-hearted forest animal running around. But here's the thing. The steps seemed to be spaced apart like a man-length stride, so it was really freaking me out. Midnight also heard the noise and was quick to run to the balcony screen door, expecting for me to let him out. Alright, you know what? I'm a tough guy, and at the time considered myself to be fairly well built and strong enough to handle myself. So I grabbed my coat and shoes, along with my cigarettes and flashlight, and went out onto the balcony. Fuck it, right? As soon as I was outside, I lit up my cigarette and started canvassing the roof with my light. Nothing there, and the snow on top was undisturbed. Weird? Must have been all my head? What about Midnight hearing the noise? Maybe he was feeding off my fear or paranoia. I started to calm down and relax again. By the way, I am shaking right now, and my heart is beating hard as I am typing this next bit. My eyes started to adjust to the darkness, and I kept smoking and just staring at the stars and trees next to our cabin. That's when I saw it. In a tree that was a little taller than our cabin and around 20 feet from the balcony, I saw what looked like a man crouched in a squatting position in between 2 branches. It was squatted on one branch and its arms were extended above its head, holding onto the branch above it. Fuck me. What the fuck is that? I wasn't sure if I was really seeing this thing and stood just staring and sat there motionless. I noticed Midnight stand up and start pacing behind me and lightly barking at the same time. The thing still did not move. I put my cigarette out and was debating on shining the light in the thing's direction, but something in my head kept screaming not to. So I walked backwards to the inside of the room and pulled Midnight with me. Once inside, I locked the door and shined the light in the thing's direction, but there was nothing there. I shut the curtains to the screen door and retreated back to bed. But later on in the night, I heard light tapping at the screen door, like someone was tapping on the glass with their fingers. It was consistent and did not stop for nearly an hour. Midnight seemed to stare at the door, but he wouldn't go near it anymore. The weirdest part was that I had a feeling like someone was inviting me to open the door. But at the same time, I kept hearing my dad's voice in my head telling me to stay in bed and not do it. I listened to my dad's voice and just stayed where I was. Passed out eventually and woke up in the morning and everything was normal. The rest of the week I spent there was non-eventful.